overall, if you're considering daily driving a 911, you're not sure if it's something you want to do, I would encourage you to try. For me, I mean, I like really kind of difficult and small and impractical cars, but I personally think this is one of the most practical cars I've ever had. It's been reliable, it's fun, there's definitely a statement to it. If you like the attention, then you may find that this is that's an added benefit of daily driving a car like this. So over 1 year of ownership, the car's cost me something around $7,000 in maintenance. But that maintenance hasn't been like regular maintenance, it's large ticket items that were neglected from the previous owner. So I wouldn't say that is an average cost of maintenance for this car in 1 year. Brakes would be expensive, but they're fine. Yeah, honestly, people are really scared of Porsches for maintenance. And I've had some scary moments with this car, sure, but the actual cost of maintenance for this car has not been bad. So it's practical, gas mileage is decent, it's small, it's fun, you can hold plenty of stuff back there, maybe not people. If you're looking at buying a 911, particularly a 997.2, and you think, well, can I daily drive this car? I say go for it. I don't think you're going to have any issues. And that's from someone who doesn't love the car. I'm by no means a Porsche enthusiast. This is my daily. I daily drive this car every day. I've had it for a year, and I've put about 10,000 kilometers on it. So these impressions are not made with a small amount of seat time. I've also tailgated the car, I've drag raced the car, and I've gone on long cruises in the car. This is not a car that is too impractical to drive every day, too small to drive every day, doesn't have enough luggage space, can't fit people. It can do all of those things. That's one of the reasons why the 911, I think, has persisted for so many years, other than its unique niche as a particular type of sports car. Fuel economy is not the best. My daily drive looks like this. And one of the appeals people have for the PDK is that it's better in traffic, right? Because you don't want to be shifting a manual in traffic. I drove R33 GTR in Tokyo. That was my daily in Tokyo. And I didn't have any issues with the manual transmission. I do have issues with the PDK. So I've driven a car in track, I've tailgated the car, and I gotta say, dynamics-wise, it's one of the most enjoyable, involving cars I've ever had. I will say I prefer the Miata, dynamically speaking, because the Miata just makes more sense. It's being that it's FR with the engine in the front and it's rear-wheel drive. You just knowing what to do is just more natural. Whereas with the rear engine layout, you kind of have to reprogram all of your muscle movements, and it's a little stressful. If you want to experience that, I highly recommend driving a 911 of any kind back to back with another sports car, and you may find that you don't like the dynamics of the 911. Wow, what is happening? Or you may find that it's exactly for you. I know some people who are just really, really good drivers who prefer the 911 because the 911 is difficult to drive. Like, it keeps them engaged. You have to, there's a high risk. Whereas with a normal car, it's too easy for them, kind of thing. If you're concerned about fun, honestly, I would compare this to, as far as fun levels, it depends on what you're looking for. So I'm not a straight line person. I know a lot of people in America are, specifically because we don't have a lot of roads that are curvy in America. So if you're a straight line person, this car will scratch that itch. It's no Hellcat, and it's no turbo, but it's plenty fast. So it will scratch that itch for straight line fun. It's the only car I've ever had, other than my Altezza, that actually throws my head back, which is definitely exciting. If you're looking for like more of a curvy, dynamic kind of fun, spirited driving, then this car will definitely do that, because that's what it's designed for. It will just do it with an added level of danger that you won't necessarily get in an FR car. 2 weeks after I bought the car, I got the transmission emergency run error, which, if you've done any research on PDKs, is like doomsday. It's the thing that everyone's afraid of. It basically means you need a whole new transmission for the tune of $20,000, because Porsche for some reason doesn't allow maintenance people to work on their transmissions. They'd rather just sell you a whole transmission. I wonder why. I tried to return the car to the dealer. I wasn't able to do so. I live in Japan. Rules here are different. I got it towed home. It worked fine after that. So I drove it to work, got the transmission emergency run error again. I was like, oh man, what's going on? And I was just, it was dark. It was rough. It was a rough time. What I ended up doing is I thought, okay, so this transmission is supposed to be adaptive, right? Which means it's logging data, which means it's storing data. So I thought, well, maybe it just has too many cookies, right? So I bet you there's a way to reformat the computer in this car. Googled it. It was a little hard to find because most people just take it to the dealer, get a whole new transmission, spend $20,000 or it's a warranty or whatever. No, you can reset the transmission in this car. Does that fix transmission emergency runs? No, probably not. My error was P1990 and P1991, if I recall correctly. The big one with the distance sensor is like a UEH error on the codes that it throws. So I didn't have that. So that's kind of what prompted me to start troubleshooting on my own before I started going nuclear. So you can reset the computer in this car, and it's kind of like an iPhone. You have to just do a sequence of events with the dash with the car to get it to know, oh, we're resetting the factory settings. And it has to be a complex sequence of events, so people don't do it on accident, right? You have to, I'll put the picture up here, I'll find it and I'll put it up in this video. But you have to basically run the car with the air conditioning on for 2 minutes, turn the air conditioning off, let it idle for 1 minute, turn the car off, get out of the car, close the door, wait a minute, get back in the car, turn it back on. Something to that effect. I think there might be a step I'm missing. I'll put it up and I'll put it in the description. And that essentially resets the transmission's computer, the TCU, to factory settings. And I thought, there's no way this is a real thing. Like, this just seems sus, for lack of a better word. Well, I did it, and immediately the shifting was way smoother. I was like, this actually did a thing. But more so than that, I did it a year ago. I've been daily driving the car, and it has not had a single hiccup since. So I highly recommend, if you have P1990, P1991 on your PDK, or any PDK error for that matter, try this first. Who knows? It might work. Worked for me. And I put 10,000 kilometers on it since then. From that, the transmission got a lot smoother. So if you saw my initial impressions of the PDK, I was not happy with the transmission. It was too rough. Well, this helped. It's still a bit clunky in the lower gears. That makes for an uncomfortable traffic experience. So I had the PDK service done. The PDK maintenance is basically a fancy way of saying change your transmission fluid. I asked the dealer I bought the car from if this car had its PDK service done. They said no. I said, okay, so that's something I need to do. So I started planning for that cost. I live in Japan, so the cost was actually a little bit cheaper. It ended up running me about $1,300 to have transmission fluid changed. Resetting the computer and changing the transmission fluid, it made this car go from completely unenjoyable and honestly miserable to drive to something I actually enjoy getting into every day. The drivability of the car has always been my chief complaint about the car. That largely solved that. So this shot looks different from before. It's because I've switched to cinematic mode on this iPhone. These phones are kind of awesome. My commute is something like 5 miles, but it's bumper to bumper traffic the whole way. On average, my gas bill for the month with daily driving this car is something like $200 a month. I think for a lot of enthusiasts, gas mileage really only matters when it starts inhibiting your ability to drive the car or spend money on parts, right? I also got new wheels and tires because the tires were old on the car. I think the rears were 7 years old and the fronts were something like 3 or 5 years old. So I just tracked it until I ran out of tire and I got new tires. But you don't get new tires without getting new wheels, obviously. So I got new wheels and tires. So that was about $5,000 because they're crazy wide. You can get wheels and tires a lot cheaper than that in this car, but the wheels and tires I wanted, that's what they came up to. I have RE71 RS on this car, and that is $295 in the rear and $245 in the front. These tires aren't known to last. While my commute is 45 minutes, it's only 5 miles that the tires are actually moving. So I'm less concerned about wear, because that means the wear that I'm putting on the tires is fun wear, where I'm actually using these tires for what they're worth.
So these are how many grams of weights that you're going to need to put on either side. But if it starts as a 10 and 10, it's usually a no-brainer. You don't need to put anything on it.
Wow.
Perfectly balanced.
I got the car polished and glass coated, which was $500. My speakers are blown. That's not the car's fault, really. I think it's misused from the previous owner. So I need to replace those. I'm expecting that to cost like $1,000. And the center console's all scratched up. I'd like to replace that. I got a new leather e-brake handle, which I haven't installed yet. So that was $150. In 1 year, the first year of ownership, the car has cost me something like $7,000 in maintenance. However, $5,000 has wheels and tires, which is not a once a year thing. It's like depending on how you drive, it could be like every 2 to 3 years. And even then you wouldn't need the wheels every 2 to 3 years. And the PDK transmission fluid is an every 6 year thing. Depending on how you drive it, you should do it more, so I probably will do it more. And that's why my gas mileage is bad. So honestly, maintenance in the car hasn't been that bad. The brakes are fine. It's got wear and tear on the interior, but it probably needs new engine mounts. I had a mechanic inspect the car and do like a full inspection of the car, and they said everything's in tip-top shape, which I was kind of disappointed to hear, to be honest, because I don't think everything's in tip-top shape. Maybe it's supposed to be this rattly. There is one thing that it does have a regular cost. It burns oil. I have to put maybe every 3 to 4 months about 1 liter of oil in the car. If you look in the forums, some people will say that's concerning, some people will say that's normal. Porsche does have a specific parameters that is considered safe for oil burn, and that would fall within that. It is an ongoing maintenance cost for the car. Have I changed my impressions of the car? Like, if you've seen my first impressions video of this car, it was not the best. I was not impressed with a lot of different things about the car. I will admit I was ignorant about some things, like the spoiler, for example, but overall I stand by everything I said for my first impression. None of that has changed. Those are all factual observations that I made about the car that did not meet my expectations. Is that the car's fault? Probably not. My expectations may have been too high, and I think that's interesting because a lot of people will put Porsches on a pedestal. It's like the premier enthusiast car, and if you ask me, they're great cars, but I will sell this car as soon as I can, and I want to get a Honda Civic Type R.